The storm had been building all evening. Not dramatically. No sudden thunder, no sharp flashes of lightning. Just a steady, patient rain that darkened the sky early and pressed gently against the house, as if testing it. I turned off most of the lights, left a lamp glowing in the living room, and settled onto the couch with a blanket and a book I wasn't really reading. I like nights like this. Rain made the world feel smaller, contained. That's why I noticed the knock immediately. It came during a thunderclap, soft enough to be mistaken for something else, timed so precisely it almost vanished beneath the sound. Almost. I looked up, heart ticking once, then settling. Probably the house, I told myself. Old wood, pressure, change. Storms did that. The rain continued. The thunder rolled farther away. I went back to my book. The second knock was clearer. Again, it came during thunder, tucked neatly into the loudest part of the sound. 3 quick taps. Polite, measured. I lowered the book slowly. The house was quiet otherwise. No footsteps, no voices, just rain sliding down the windows in thin, uneven lines. I checked the time. Just after 10. I didn't move. Thunder boomed again. No knock that time. I exhaled, a little embarrassed at how tense my shoulders felt, and stood to make tea. The kettle clicked on. The storm rumbled distantly. As I waited, I found myself listening, not for thunder, but for the spaces between it. The third knock landed closer to the end of the thunderclap. Not hidden this time, just masked. Someone had timed it carefully. I stood very still, kettle forgotten, tea bag dangling uselessly from my fingers. The knock hadn't been loud, but it carried a deliberate quality that made my skin prickle. I walked to the front door, stopping a few feet away. "Hello?" I called, feeling foolish as soon as the word left my mouth. No answer. Only rain. I checked the porch light through the peephole. The porch was empty, slick with water, shadows pooling where the light didn't quite reach. Another thunderclap rolled overhead. Nothing else followed. I locked the door, something I didn't usually bother with when I was home, and returned to the couch. The storm intensified after that. Thunder came more frequently, closer together, the sound echoing through the walls and into my chest. I turned the lamp a little brighter. The room felt smaller now, the darkness outside pressing against the windows. The next knock came just as the thunder peaked. 4 taps this time. They were closer together, quicker, as if whoever was knocking was getting impatient, or more confident. I stood up again, slower this time, heart beating carefully, like it didn't want to make too much noise. I didn't call out. I waited. Thunder faded. Silence rushed in behind it, thick and expectant. Then, very softly, someone knocked again. No thunder, just the sound of knuckles against wood. I stepped back from the door. The knocking didn't repeat itself immediately. The rain filled the space instead, heavy and unbroken, like static. I realized then that the rain had become louder, more insistent, as if compensating for something else. I checked my phone. No alerts, no missed calls. The power flickered briefly, then steadied. The lamp buzzed softly. Outside, lightning flashed, bright enough to cast sharp shadows across the room. In that brief instant, I thought I saw someone standing just beyond the porch light's reach. When the darkness returned, the porch was empty again. The knocking resumed. Not at the door. At the side of the house. It moved slowly, methodically, always during thunder, always advancing a little closer to the front. I could trace its progress by sound alone. Tap, tap, tap against the siding, then farther forward, then closer still. Whoever it was knew the rhythm of the storm now. The thunderclaps began to feel spaced, controlled, as if something else were deciding when they should happen. I backed away until I was standing in the hallway, every light on, the house suddenly too big and too quiet all at once. The final thunderclap was enormous, shaking the windows, rattling the pictures on the walls. The knock came at the very end of it, directly on my bedroom door. I didn't remember going to the hallway. I don't remember deciding not to run. I stood there, staring at the door, listening to my breath echo faintly in my ears. The rain seemed to hush itself, like it was listening too. A hand pressed gently against the door from the other side. Not pushing. Just resting. There. The thunder was gone now. The storm had moved on or finished its work. The rain softened, became almost peaceful again. I waited for another knock. Instead, a voice spoke, quiet, careful, positioned exactly where the sound of rain would blur it if I wasn't paying attention. "You weren't supposed to hear me yet," it said. I didn't answer. "I was practicing," the voice continued, almost apologetic. "Thunder covers a lot of mistakes." The hand slid down the door, slow and deliberate. "I didn't mean to scare you," it said. "I just needed to know when you were awake." The power went out then, not dramatically. Just a soft click, the lights vanishing without ceremony. Darkness filled the hallway, complete and immediate. The rain outside returned to its steady rhythm. No thunder. The voice sighed, close enough now that I could feel the sound of it through the door. "It's harder without the noise," it said, "but I think I've learned enough." The handle turned, very slowly. I don't remember screaming. I remember the rain and the sound of careful knocking. Perfectly timed, fading into something that didn't need to hide anymore. Rain makes mirrors out of everything. That was the first thought I had. Standing in my living room with the lights low, watching the city blur beyond the glass. The window stretched from floor to ceiling, a dark pane stitched with rivulets of water. Each drop caught the glow of streetlights and pulled it downward, bending the world into slow, wavering lines. I liked watching it at night, alone. The rain-softened edges, erased distance, made the apartment feel sealed off from everything else. Safe. My reflection hovered in the glass, faint, incomplete. A suggestion of a person layered over the city's ghostly glow. I lifted a hand. The reflection did the same, just a fraction of a second late. I frowned, lowering my arm and raising it again. The lag was subtle enough that I could have imagined it. Rain distorts things, after all. The glass bowed slightly. Light refracted. That's all. Still, I stepped back from the window. My reflection followed. This time, I was certain it hesitated. I turned off the lamp. The apartment dimmed, leaving only the cold blue light leaking in from outside. The rain grew louder in the quiet, a constant whisper against the glass. My reflection sharpened, darker now, more present. I leaned closer, breath fogging the window. The reflection leaned too. When I stepped back again, the reflection remained where it was, palm still pressed to the glass. I stopped breathing. The reflection smiled. It wasn't a wide smile, nothing dramatic, just a slight upward pull at the corners of the mouth, an expression I recognized from moments when I was distracted, when I thought no one was watching. I swallowed. The reflection lifted its hand and placed it flat against the window, fingers splayed. I raised my own hand slowly, matching the motion, until our palms aligned on either side of the glass. The rain ran between us, thin streams carving paths around where our hands met. The reflection's fingers twitched. Mine did not. Lightning flashed, bright and sudden. For a split second, the window showed me the apartment behind me instead of the city beyond. Couch, bookshelf, dark hallway leading to the bedroom. In the glass, the reflection was still facing forward, looking past me, at the room. When the darkness returned, the reflection had stepped closer, its face nearly touching the glass. Its eyes were wrong, not in shape or color, just in attention. They focused too intently, as if studying something small and delicate. Me. I backed away slowly, heart steady but heavy, like it was sinking into something deeper than fear. The reflection did not retreat. It pressed closer, breath fogging the glass from the other side, leaving a pale oval that lingered longer than it should have. I turned away from the window. The rain continued. Behind me, the sound of fabric shifting was impossibly soft. I spun around. The window was empty. Only my own reflection stared back now, pale and shaken. Movements perfectly synchronized once more. I laughed, quiet, unconvincing, and rubbed my face with both hands. When I lowered them, the reflection lagged again. I didn't go near the window after that. I sat on the couch with my knees drawn up, listening to the rain, counting the seconds between thunderless flashes of lightning. The apartment felt different now, less like a shelter, more like a stage set that had forgotten its audience had left. Every few minutes, I glanced toward the glass. The reflection stood there, waiting, not moving, just watching. The next time the lightning flashed, the reflection wasn't alone. Something stood just behind it. The shape was vague, distorted by rain and glare, but unmistakably human. Taller than me. Close enough that its presence crowded the reflection forward, pressing it toward the glass. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them again, the window showed only the rain-smeared city and my own trembling image. The second figure was gone. The reflection lifted one finger. It tapped the glass. Once. I stood up. The reflection didn't wait this time. It moved before I did, stepping back as if making room. Inviting. I shook my head, a small helpless gesture. "No," I whispered, though I wasn't sure what I was refusing. The reflection's mouth moved. The rain swallowed the sound. I crossed the room quickly, pulled the curtain shut, and leaned my forehead against the fabric, breathing hard. The window was hidden now, sealed away. Behind the curtains, the glass creaked softly, as if something were leaning against it. Sleep came eventually, the way it always does, through exhaustion rather than comfort. I dreamed of standing outside in the rain, looking up at my apartment. The window glowed faintly. Someone stood inside, watching me, their face blurred by water and distance. When I woke, the rain had stopped. Morning light filled the room, gentle and ordinary. The curtains hung still. The apartment felt harmless again, almost embarrassed by the night before. I opened the curtains. The window was dry, except for a single handprint on the outside of the glass. I scrubbed it away with shaking hands, telling myself it must have been condensation, a trick of heat and cold. The city beyond moved normally. Cars, people, life continuing without pause. But reflections are everywhere. In shop windows, in phone screens, in darkened TVS. All day, I felt eyes on me. Not from behind, but from within surfaces. Watching. Learning the timing of my movements. The way thunder had taught something else when to knock. That night, it rained again. I didn't turn on any lights. I sat in the dark and listened to the rain, slow and steady, until the window became a mirror once more. My reflection appeared. It smiled before I did, and this time, when it raised its hand, I didn't bother checking whether it was late, because somewhere behind the glass, something had already learned how to wait. The rain began at exactly 9:43 p.m. I noticed because it always did. Not because I was keeping track, not consciously, but because my evenings had developed a rhythm since I started living alone. Dinner at 7, dishes by 8, lights dim by 9:30. By the time I turned off the lamp beside the couch, the rain would be there, tapping gently against the windows like it had been waiting for permission to start. That night was no different. The moment the room fell into darkness, the first drops struck the glass. I smiled to myself, wrapped in the familiar comfort of it. Rain had always been soothing, predictable. It made the apartment feel insulated from the rest of the world, like everything outside had been blurred for my benefit. I went to bed listening to it breathe against the building. The first time I noticed the timing, I was standing in the kitchen. I'd left the bedroom light on by accident and returned to switch it off. As soon as my finger brushed the switch and the room went dark, the rain outside intensified. No gradual buildup, just a sudden, deliberate increase, as if someone had turned a dial. I paused. The rain continued, steadily. I flipped the light back on. The rain softened. I turned it off again. The rain returned to its previous rhythm. I laughed, a little too loudly, and shook my head. Coincidences stack up when you're tired. Weather's complicated. Cities create microclimates. I'd read that somewhere. Still, I left the light on that night. The rain stayed light, almost hesitant. Over the next few evenings, I tested it. Subtly at first, turning a lamp on and off while pretending not to listen. Then more deliberately, standing by the window, watching the street below as I controlled the switches, like a child playing with shadows. Every time the lights went out, the rain grew bolder. Every time they came back on, it retreated. The storm never lasted long, just enough to settle once I lay down. Just enough to fill the silence with sound. One night, I stayed awake on purpose. I lay in bed with the lights off, eyes open, listening. The rain began as expected, soft and steady. I focused on my breathing, slowing it, then stopping altogether. The rain faltered. For the first time, it stuttered. I held my breath until my chest burned. The rain stopped completely. I sat up, heart pounding, the sudden quiet louder than any storm. The city outside looked wrong without the rain, too sharp, too exposed. A single car passed, its tires whispering on dry pavement. I exhaled. The rain resumed instantly, heavier than before, not angry, relieved. After that, the rain became more patient. It no longer reacted immediately to the lights. Instead, it waited. Watched. If I turned off a lamp and remained standing, the rain stayed light, tentative. If I sat down, it grew stronger. If I lay back and closed my eyes, it settled into a deep, steady rhythm that matched my breathing. In, out. The rain followed. I stopped trying to fight it. I told myself it was my imagination, that patterns emerge when you expect them to. But I began to dread the nights when I couldn't sleep. On those nights, the rain would thin out, almost vanishing, leaving the world too quiet, too exposed, waiting. One evening, exhausted and wired, I decided to stay awake all night. I made coffee, left every light on, sat at the kitchen table with my eyes open and my back straight. Outside, the clouds hung low and motionless, No rain fell. Hours passed. The apartment hummed softly with electricity, a fragile barrier against the dark. At 3:12 a.m., my head dipped despite my efforts. Just for a second. The rain began immediately, not gradually, instantly. Heavy drops hammered the windows, drumming against the roof with sudden urgency. I jerked awake, heart racing, and the rain weakened, but didn't stop. It lingered, learning. From that night on, waking up became harder. Sleep pulled at me with unfamiliar weight, dragging me under, faster, deeper. I'd close my eyes for what felt like moments and wake to find hours gone. The rain would be in full force by then, relentless, surrounding the building and sound. I started dreaming of storms that watched me from above, clouds arranged like attentive faces, waiting for my eyelids to close. I tried sleeping with the lights on. The rain didn't care anymore. The final night came quietly. No dramatic clouds. No warning in the air. I went through my routine on autopilot, too tired to resist. When I turned off the lamp, the rain arrived not as a storm, but as a blanket. Thick, constant, all-encompassing. I lay down. The sound wrapped around me instantly, filling every gap in the apartment. It seeped into the walls, the vents, the floor, until it felt less like rain and more like breathing. I tried to sit up. My body refused. Sleep pressed down on me, heavier than gravity, pulling my thoughts apart and smoothing them into something pliable. Outside, the rain intensified. I realized then that it wasn't responding to the lights. It was responding to me, to the moment I surrendered. As consciousness slipped, I had one last clear thought, that the rain didn't need me asleep forever, just long enough, just enough to rest. The sound reached a perfect rhythm, matching my slowed breath, surrounding the building in a cocoon of noise. The world narrowed to that sound alone, safe and steady and impossibly close. In the distance, far above the clouds, I thought I heard something sigh. Satisfied. The rain continued, and I slept, deeply. Finally, resting just the way it needed me to.